Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone around the world. I am Paul Sisler, and this is In the Moment. I love that little doom right at the end. As some of you may have noticed, I am no longer on Twitter. I know I've been saying this on some of my shows. My account got hacked, and I probably will not, I repeat, I probably will not be going back to Twitter, X, whatever it is you want to call it, especially since he wants to probably charge $1 for everybody just to be on there. It's just no longer worth my time and all that. You can find me on Threads. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on LinkedIn. So I will be all over the place, building up my accounts elsewhere and having fun doing it. So there we go. With that said, welcome to the Vellum with T. Paul Wolfrick. Hello, T. Paul.
Hey, yeah, no, it's pretty interesting with the Twitter stuff because I was watching I was watching Russell Brand's show yesterday because he covers the news when it comes to the how media is handling Twitter and other big tech giants and some of the information that's being uncovered. It's pretty nefarious. Like I just kind of like I look at it, I'm like. You know, I wonder if the people that hacked you are exposing some stuff. It's interesting, but yeah, no. This episode's going to be called "Lifted from Perdition," and I know Paul, you got to share that definition about it. But because we're
Yes,
not talking about what happens after you
right.
die, we're talking about what happens when you're still alive.
Right. The definition
And
of perdition is a state of eternal punishment and damnation into which a sinful and unpenitent person passes after death. And a lot of us live in perdition right here on earth. And that's what we're talking about, lifting ourselves up from this hell on earth that we live in.
yep, no, that's exactly what I'm talking about. You know, a lot of time because we've been talking about mental health now for quite a few episodes, and I'm sure some of you are going, "Oh, this is amazing," and then there's a few of you out there who are like, "Shut the hell up." Basically, what we're talking about is the act of using fiction to transcend past our past and our mistakes being made. There are characters who make us who we are through different stages of our lives, which are elements, shades of our own inner awakening and heroes, even anti-heroes, villains, people have multiple facets and shades of darkness and light. And often as children and teens, even adults. I mean, you look at all the fiction you consume, look at every story you ever like that's fictional or made up, and even if you're one of those people like reality TV, this still comes from that. Like this still comes from parts of us that we like to try and hide, or we like to try and run away from even ourselves. And part of perdition is being stuck, being mentally dragged down from everything you deal with from day to day. Like even something as simple as that damn washer won't do what it's supposed to do, or something as simple as whether or not the kids are doing what they're supposed to do, and suddenly you're questioning yourself as a parent, or something else is going on. It's the idea of being trapped mentally. And I know that you guys will probably listen to some of the other podcasts that talk about spirituality, symbiosis, things like that. And this is kind of like, it's vital to the conversation because of the fact that our heroes often end up as very shades of fiction and less so real people, but stem from real people. Like one of the things that my brother always likes to talk about is because like also they're gonna be like, oh well, these people they're fake, they're make believe. Some of the best people I ever look up to are not even real. And he's like, no, that's not true. They stem from real people. They come from real people. Like there's somebody that Tolkien knew, or there's somebody that one of the other creators that you like knew, or that someone that George Lucas knew that, it came from. And so, yes, it would come from real people. And so, what I'm talking about is the act of writing helps with mental health. It helps with, like there's exercising at the gym and then there's writing. I happen to do both. So, it's a way of having the therapeutic process, if you will. And what are some of your thoughts on perdition there, Paul, since you've had to deal with it yourself?
Well, everybody goes through something. I mean, you have the everyday, stuff that we deal with. A lot of it, due to poverty. People live paycheck to paycheck. And you know, um, you get a flat tire or something like that. It's like, how am I gonna, get the tire fixed? So you got the everyday things, but then you got the life's traumatizing things. Like in childhood, I was bullied. And the thing of it is that everybody, especially in your youth, your imagination. It's like when I was being bullied, I used to imagine myself being able to fly, having super strength, having all these different things, and I would defeat the bullies. So, in that imagination, that was my escape, trying to defeat them with, all these superhuman qualities. Well, when you start looking at like superheroes, you look at the heroes of stories, the villains, the anti hero. When you're looking at all these characters, they all stem from people's personal lives in some way, shape, or form. That imagination allows you to, from the lived experiences, allows you to create things. A lot of the things from my childhood into my adulthood, I at one time had an issue with drugs. All of this stuff goes into my stories. Part of me is in all of my stories. So that's how I escape from perdition is I now put it on paper.
Right.
And other people, again, they may go to the gym and work out. They may, take up music. They may take up something else. But everything that everybody goes through, this perdition of life that everybody is in some way, shape, or form, even rich people, have to deal with stuff, that other people wouldn't understand because, again, it's like, well, they're rich. What kind of problems could they have and all that? Bad relationships, people only wanting them for their money, people not liking them because they're not either attractive enough and the money is what is the attraction. So, I mean, there's things that people deal with, in many different ways, in many different forms. And when we escape that perdition, we do that, us as writers, we do that on paper where everyone else has got an outlet somewhere else. Unfortunately, sometimes those outlets aren't good. They result in drinking, smoking, doing drugs, lifestyles that just aren't healthy. So there we go.
Yeah. Yeah, and gym helps with the lifestyle too. Like it does. Even if you do it in minor amounts, like let's say you just do cardio for like half the time you're there, and then you lift some weights for a good 20 minutes, just to kind of build up that stamina, build up that thing. It's kind of like with writing. Like because when someone says that I have writer's block, it's what they're saying is they have a blockage somewhere. Like whether it's a spiritual block, emotional block, something's going on in their life, whether that they're not doing a certain thing in their life, sorry, fly, or whether or not something else is going on, and so the act of writing is also a muscle. Like I talk about gym and stuff, and so the that last thing someone will think is, oh, you're thinking about the hoorah guys who gym rats, and I'm like, no, I'm not talking about myself. Just kidding. No, I'm talking about like the idea of being able to write 400 words one day, and then struggling with 80 the next, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere you're pumping out like 3,000, but it's not a consistent thing. Then you go right back to the 500 or the 300. That's still okay because it's still a workout in your head. It's still a workout with your fingers. It's still a workout with you being able to use the creative guru that's in your mind that's trying to work through the garbage, work through the stuff that you're stuck in. And that's part of what the perdition is. It's part of what the mental health is. And I was bullied too in high school and middle school, like different areas, different, little areas of, my life. I've had to deal with that too. So it's like, I think a lot of people have. And so this is kind of meant to talk about, characters like Luke Skywalker, Harry Potter, Frodo, whatever your ideal version of that is. That's mine. So when I was like 5, 6 years old, it was Luke Skywalker. Later on, of course, when I was a preteen, it was Potter, and then of course throughout all that period, it was also Frodo because Hobbit existed already, and Lord of the Rings was starting to come out in the movie form, and Frodo was one of the characters that was a big one aside from Aragorn. Aragorn was my personal favorite, and then there's Gandalf. You shall not pass, and so you've got different versions of that for everybody because like some people watch anime, some people watch Action movies primarily. Like my brother, he watches a lot of action movies. Like a lot of times we'll be at the gym and he'll randomly quote one of the characters from Fast and the Furious all the time. That's just his thing. But basically, the idea is that we have fiction to depend on, and lucky people have a lot of real people as heroes. A lot of lucky people do. I'm not one of those people. A lot of times I have to remind myself of people's good qualities, to be able to draw from, because a lot of times I'll be like, well, they suck. But like at the same time, it's like, well, there is some good things about them. There's some redeemable stuff about them. And so, we pull from that when we write, at least I do. And I don't know if you do or anybody else does, but I pull from people in real life. I pull from moments in fiction. Like I'll be watching a movie one day, like revisiting something, or I'll watch something new. And I'll be like, hey, I like that in that scene. Let me go ahead and draw from that for a little character beat, not the whole thing, but that character beat that might work well for something. And then I just kind of I write something that uses that as like a point of creation, initial point, and then the final thing may be utterly different or maybe very similar. I don't know, but it ends up doing something, and I'm able to get out of perdition, if you will. I'm able to get unstuck. I'm able to, for even 5 minutes, be like, oh my god, this is amazing. And then like it's not like there were some nights when I was messaging Paul over here and being like, hey, by the way, I did this, this, and this. And it was not really I'm gonna show off for 5 minutes. It was I got unstuck. Oh my god, I did a thing. Hey, this is amazing. And then when Paul is sending me stuff, I'm like, woo woo, because whenever that was part of what drew that's part of what Twitter did, right? It drew all of us together. It served as a mounting point for a bunch of people who are like-minded individuals to find each other into a tiny space that otherwise would never have existed. And that's why I was glad that we had Twitter. I was glad that before it became X, I was glad it existed, because there were so many people on there that I've met over the last couple of years,
Yes.
that few years, that I would not have become the writer I am currently right now without their influence. Like whether even if it was a small thing as us just talking about horror stuff, like when Daigle gets all in his zone talking about cannibals and other stuff, and then when other people get in their zone talking about other stuff, this is what I'm talking about. Perdition. It's the idea of community, the idea of our own inner strength, being able to find a way out of that, and using our tools, which are writing, knowledge, hopefully, and mental health, things like that to carry through. What are some of your thoughts on that one, Paul?
Oh, I tell you, you mentioned heroes like, good versus evil type stories. And I get more into like Breaking Bad, Walter
Yeah,
White. Okay.
Walter.
Here's a guy dying of cancer and all that. And he decides, he's a science teacher and he creates the best crystal meth out there, and he makes sure his family's taken care of, even though he brings a lot of things down on him, you know. So to me, he's like my hero because he's someone that fights through life itself, it's when I start looking at the different things and all that, I look at the characters, take like you remember the classic Oliver?
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, here he is. Can I have some more porridge, sir? I mean, he's living on the streets. He's got to become a thief. He tries to be a good kid. You know, these are the heroes to me. Growing up, of course, my father was my hero. He gave me all the real good cliche sayings that apply today. Even it's those types of things. And then when it comes to for me, I've lived through a lot of things, and it wasn't until you brought up Twitter and X. I met a lot of people on there. A shout out to Torch the Poet. Uh, he got me back into my poetry. My wife passed away. He's the one that told me to start putting it on paper. I had already written a nonfiction book, and um, that brought me into the political aspect. And then I heard J.C. Colts, uh, reading in a space, and I was just like, oh my god! I mean, this guy is just like they have the best story there is ever. And then I hear people like L.R. Evans, Luke. Oh my God, she's like the greatest critiquer. Um, and there's a whole bunch of others out there. You know, yourself, High Lord, Cornelia Blackmore. There's so many people out there that Daigle you mentioned that are phenomenal writers. And when I would hear them read, it got my juices flowing. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
I can write fiction. I can do this. And I started out with a little segment that I called TJ. And I was expecting people to be, basically laughing at me as I, read it. And people were like, Paul, that's good. Oh, seriously, Paul, that's good. Oh my God, and there is personal experience that goes into that. In one of the first chapters, TJ gets brutally beaten by his father. Now,
Yeah.
I wasn't abused as a child, okay, by my father or my mother, physically. And I had a neighbor friend that was. And I witnessed a very similar beating to what I wrote in that book. And it traumatized me as a kid, seeing someone just thrown around like that, a child by an adult. That was traumatizing. Now I get to tell that story in my book. And then
Yep.
my wife, when she passed away, um, in her death, there was this raspy breathing. I mean, she's already gone, but there's still this automatic reflex that happens with the body where there's like this
Death
raspy
rattle.
breathing going on. What did you say? What's it called?
Death rattle. My mom
No,
was doing the same
yes,
shit before she died.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And um, I put that also into my book. When somebody was dead and that raspy in their voice, that's also in TJ, you know. So these traumatizing experiences, I put that now into my writing, you know. So I forget who it was. Somebody commented and all that, and it's just like, oh my God, but that, that that's what happened to your wife. And I go, yes, and it bothers me that sound, that the look in her eyes, everything that is just one of the most horrific memories that I have because somebody I
Yep.
love passed away. I utilize that in my story because other people are going to know what that is. That's it's going to resonate, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So that gives it that realism. You know, that's what brings people into a character is that realism that I can associate with that. That's what makes
Mm-hmm.
stories like Breaking Bad so goddamn good. People know what it's like to go through medical health experiences and wondering what the hell they're going to do. And I guarantee you, I did it. It's like, God, I wish I had that science degree. Jesus Christ. I would make a fortune selling freaking drugs, because you want to overcome what it is that you're going through, and that's what draws you in. And then us as writers, we want people to connect with that, so we put it in our writing. This is why we watch all these damn shows and we get glued into them, even a bad show. I'll sit there and I will watch something that is absolutely horrible because the idea of the story is awesome.
Yep.
You know? And it's like, my God, if they would have had a good director and a good producer and a good writer, this could have been something because this idea rocks.
Right. Yeah, no, I still remember the beginning of Breaking Bad. The first like 5 minutes is literally him coming outside of that camper trailer in a pair of underwear, and like that's all he's wearing is a pair of underwear, and he's like walking around on the outskirts of that little desert highway where
Yep.
where like the road is just simply dirt and stuff, and him like doing that, and the whole time you're like going, what's gonna happen now? Guy in the total his underwear is totally running around naked, nearly bald, bare naked. And then like later on in the end of the initial intro arc, same guy who was running around in his underwear gets in a confrontation with some people in a giant building, and they're not exactly taking him completely seriously. And that's when he takes the little rock, this little thing that's like super tiny, fits in your pocket, which of course I joked about last night when we went to the haunted house, and they were like, did you bring explosives? Did you bring this? Did you bring that?" I'm like, "Well, I ain't Walter White." But like basically he takes that little rock and he throws it and the whole building just goes boom and he's walking out of the building. Like that's still electric. That was one of the things about that show I loved the most is just how gray it was and how like between the edges of what everyone thinks is good and evil, and like it kind of forced you to re-examine and retouch on what that even means. Like, what does it mean to be truly evil or truly good? What does it mean if you're somewhere that's in the middle and you're not either one? Like, you're just simply a person trying to survive, and you're literally dying, or waiting. Like every day of this series could be your last, and somehow you last as long as you do. But you're in the meantime, you're trying to support your family, you're trying to support your medical expenses, you're trying to not die, and this is happening. Like as you pointed out, like we've got Jay who writes very complex characters. We got Cornelia who wrote that one chapter where she's like the character's watching her mom be brutalized by soldiers, and yet that was one of the scenes that sticks out the most in my head, aside from the flirting and stuff between the main character and the love interest. To their relationship reminds me of Cirque Freaks, Larton Crepsley and Darren, but the difference is that Darren and Larton are not lovers. They're practically father and son, whereas Cornelia's characters are, two people who are practically, enemies to lovers. But like that's the thing, is that's what makes everything relevant. That's what makes it all resonant with us, is the fact that when you take those situations like your wife's death, which I know that at some point will end up in something, just like mine did, because that's just how we are. But then you got like Cornelia and you got Dago, and Cornelia draws on past lives. Like she's an interesting case because she doesn't just delve on what's happened to her in this life. Like she remembers previous lives. Like people are like, "Oh, do you believe in reincarnation?" Cornelia absolutely does, because she literally will have a flashback in the middle of eating breakfast, and it'll be a life that's not even now. It's a life that happened 500 years ago, and she's like, "Where the hell did you come from?" And so she's trying to figure out what that memory is attached to. And like, because often our memories are attached to objects, attached to senses, attached to music pieces, things that we experience, which is part of why it's part of the memory. And with hers, it's something that isn't even part of this life, so it shouldn't be tied to anything. And yet she touches a box of cereal and remembers a flashback of running in a forest or something. Like, there's so many different random things that happen with her, and she draws on that to write her own books. Like, it's pretty great. I know she's involved with her spirituality stuff, with her Reiki stuff. Which, by the way, if you visit Cornelia Blackmore on her Twitter page and then her Facebook page, you'll eventually run into her Reiki page. I do not remember the details, but she does great stuff. Anyway, quick plug.
We have to get her and Daigle back on the show.
I know, right? I have never even done it with Daigle. That's the thing. Like, I invited him like months ago, and he was busy with stuff. Life is happening, so we'll find out. We'll find out and see where it goes. But
well, we did an episode of Daigle.
I didn't. So if you did, I didn't.
Okay. Well, I've had Daigle on a few times and all that. Maybe it was with Luke. I think I've had him on with. Anyways, we definitely got to get them all back on and all that. especially since I'm not on Twitter anymore and all that, and I don't get to go into spaces and listen to them. So I'm going to have to get them on here so I can see them and talk to them and show my love and appreciation. So, anyways.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that about writing though. I love that about storytelling in general. Like no matter whether the story is in a song, a poem, as you do so well. Whether it's in your newest book that you're going to be releasing sometime soon in the near future, which by the way, I think is awesome. And I loved when you went into the Twitter spaces and decided to do a narration of it because there was voices you were doing that I was like, is that still Paul? So,
Oh,
it,
it's not Paul. Who do you think this is?
yeah, no, I loved it. Like it was great. And so, when it comes to storytelling in general, it's always amazing what happens when you're able to pull off stuff that's iconic or the stuff that could be iconic one day, and how it all roots from being messed up.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll have to sit
Like,
back and have some more Blanton's, green label,
yes.
pecans, and I will have to surmise what it is I'm going to talk about in our next episode. Yes. So, anyways, yes, we are screwy. We are writers. We have lost our marbles. We are, what's his name from Peter Pan that lost his marbles. Anyways, we still haven't found our marbles. We're still looking, and eventually one day we will probably find them. Hopefully, maybe, who knows? Who cares? I don't really play with marbles, anyways. So, but yes, yes. Us as writers, we may have a few real life heroes, but in essence, most of our heroes do come from fiction. Yes.
Some of
Uh,
the best quotes also come from effed up moments. Like my sibling called a family member a trapped bird in a cage or a trapped bird in a cage full of a house of cards. I think that's how the quote went, and it was a really epic line. And I had to send it to my aunt Tammy just to be like, by the way, Nico said this, and it was a good line, but it was surrounding a tragedy that's currently going on with my family. But it was a cool line, and a lot of different cool, awesome lines come from real life, come from people in their trials and their darkest moments, and hopefully we're able to gain some art from it.
yes, yes, absolutely,
So
absolutely.
yeah, the symbiosis of reality and fiction converge when our minds in fiction, the breathing essence of paper and ink, the vellum of our creativity presides inside this concept and stems from mental health. It stems from our ability to be us.
Yes, yes. Every fractured aspect of our mind, everything that has been broken and mended, all that scar tissue holds memories that we put on paper, and that it helps that scar tissue regrow into something stronger and healthier. Because we all the things, and again, this isn't just people that have gone through extreme traumas. Again, everyday life is a trauma. No matter who you are, what side of the tracks you're on, everybody's living through something. Everybody's living through something, and if everybody would put it, I mean, think about this: you go to work, everyone's got that one employee that just won't leave them alone or won't quit bothering them or will come up to them and hold conversation that you just don't want to be in because it's nonsensical conversation. And you sit there and your imagination starts going wild, and you're imagining how you would like to just take this paper towel and put it up into a ball and shove it down their throat. You're imagining how you could throw them out of building. You're imagining all these different things. Well, in essence, when you're imagining all of this stuff, you are writing a story in your head. And
Hmm.
when you do that, you are creating this story. And you have chapters and chapters and chapters and chapters of story that may have gone on for 10, 15, 20 years. Well, why not put it on paper? Why not sit down and when you have this imagination going on about a boss, a fellow employee, a person at church, a person at the social club, a person that you go and shoot around the golf with, whatever the case is, there's always somebody that just really irks you. Well, there's your villain. There's your villain.
Yep.
And now you're the hero. Write the story. Lift yourself from your own perdition.
Yep, exactly. And that's kind of what I like to talk about when it comes to storytelling. Because when I first started writing, when I was like 15, 16 ish, years old, like I'm, because I was a gamer as a kid. Like my eldest son is really showing me who I was as a kid because he's absolute, gaming addict, and like it can get a little much, and I have to like pull him away from it sometimes. But when I was I think it was 11 or 12 years old when I finally started writing, but like it wasn't anything good. It was like what you would expect from 11 or 12-year-old, where I was like, it was like I think I was trying to do a diary of some kind, and I didn't know how to, convey anything. So I was writing down simple things like I ate pizza, or mom made me do laundry, ew, or something like that, and like it was kind of silly and stuff. But I didn't actually take it more and more seriously until I was like 15, and that's when I was like, wait a minute, you can get paid for this. And like, because like I didn't know how any of it worked. I just knew that books were in the library. I knew that teachers were assigning books for reading for class, and you had to do homework on it, or you had to do an assignment, or something of that nature. I didn't realize that somebody was going into a business deal with a publisher and being like, give me money, and the fact that I could potentially get a video game out of it. Like I was just like, oh wait a minute, what? And so I think it was like 15, 16 is when I started really taking it seriously. But 14 is about when I actually started using it for therapy. Because dark event happened in my life. My mom tried to fight me because she wasn't the same person she was when my kids were born. But she had her issues, and I decided to transcribe that into the story. And that whole thing you're talking about, where like that is now your villain. My mom essences of her, because I didn't want to make her the be like publish the story one day and then people be like, is the mom your mom your villain? Yes. No, instead I wanted to do is I wanted to take and make her different, give her a different name, probably a spin-off of her real name. Give her a name, and then give her a sort of like a background that was similar to what she already had, but change enough of the details where she's fictional. And what I did was it became therapy unintentionally. It wasn't like I woke up and said, I'm going to use my writing for therapy. I didn't know what that meant. I just knew that I was in pain. Everything sucked at the moment, and I needed to write it down. And then the therapist told me, that's a form of therapy, by the way. And I was like, wait, what? But like, it was new to me back then. And so when it comes to, storytelling, that's what a lot of us do. Like I've met some incredible people who, have amazing stories. I've even had one of them on here. I had Jazz on here, and she wrote her book on trauma, and wrote her own version of that, and it was awesome being able to talk to her about it. And it's this thing that's fascinating to me. The idea of being able to take your pain and like hold it up like this, like metaphorically, of course, and then be like, hey, by the way, paper, there you go, you're welcome, and just kind of just hand off the baton to a fictional character that is like, thanks, now you gave me child abuse. Thanks, now you gave me death. And it's like, yeah, have fun with that. Have fun wrestling with mortality for the rest of your life. Good luck. I'll be here a little bit. It's like, wait, are you God? I mean, I guess it's kind of like dealing with that. But like, we are our own. But like, basically, that's kind of what it is. It rises with the pain of our hearts, our souls, and burns with the tears of our past. Sometimes I write some really good lines in these outlines. But our darker selves breathing in the shadowy corners of our minds, often we hide from them. Tell ourselves to be the best versions. One of the things I read from Cornelia recently, which was awesome, was the true reactive healing isn't being the best version. It's learning to love the worst version. It's
Right.
learning to let go of the pain of being the worst version, because that comes from the same thing. It's basically when we hide our inner child, the one that's hurt, the one that gets hurt first. It hurts parts of us, and then the hurt extends to our adult selves, and often never becomes whole. I often end up struggling with that until your 70s, 80s, 90s, and then you sit there with life of regret. If you're one of those people that end up with that experience, and it's not a good thing. So hopefully by using writing, we're able to escape our own perdition. A perdition that it's a mental trapping. My dad is one of those people that's dealing with that right now. He's dealing with his own perdition. He built a bird cage. He climbed into it thinking it was going to be great. Walled off all the edges from all the hate and all the hurt and stuff that he thought he perceived to be happening, and now he's trapped. Now it's going to take an escape crew to help him out, or it's going to take him being able to weave around the demons of his past and weave around his own hurt to get through it, and then he won't be a trapped bird anymore. But right now he's kind of a trapped bird, and me and my sibling were talking about it a lot, and of course the siblings beyond angry. I've been doing my own work. Paul, you've helped with that a little bit, quite a bit actually. I quote you a lot, and it's one of those things that as people and writers, it's not just playing make believe. It's not just us being like, let's pull out our action figures, like what they do with any of the Avengers movies or DC or whatever movie you create that's adapted from something. It's also being like, this hurts. I need to do something with it. Oh wait, that's right. I do write for a hobby. Let's put it there. And, and like trying to, find a way to get through it. And you got some awesome stories yourself about how you do that. So I enjoy hearing those, and it often reflects back at me and makes me think, oh wait, that's right, Teapot does that too. Not always self-aware of that, because it's kind of the thing. But basically, what I'm trying to say is that the perdition we stick ourselves into needs to change. We need to work on healing our inner child. We need to work on healing those parts of us that we either are ashamed of or that we want to try and hide from because it hurts and it sucks. And it's just loads of suck. And it's this the grieving 500-pound bear that sits in your chest and doesn't want to get off. We need to find a way to get through that. And hopefully writing is one of those ways. What are your thoughts on that one, Paul?
Oh, writing gives you understanding as well as reading.
Yeah.
I as I get older and the things that I've gone through probably in the last few years, I think back on a lot of things. Where did I go wrong? How could I have done things better? How can I apply that now? Because obviously you can't change the past. You can't go back and fix where you effed up. Okay, because wherever it is that you effed up, that's done. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of going back and dwelling over it, I go back and I try to understand it. What was I thinking then? Why was I thinking in that way? What led me to that belief system? And now when I get these thoughts and I reminisce over, past lives of this life, because we change every day. We become somebody new. So we live a million lives in this one life. I can remember when I was isolating, um, when I was a youth and in elementary school. A book that I connected with was called The Gizmo. Okay. It was, about finding this little thing and all that had these powers and all that. And it was from outer space, and it was a connection, it was getting lost in your own world. And that's where I was. in my youth. In junior high school, April Morning by I think it's Howard Fast. I think it's the story of the Minutemen, the militias, and how we fought the Redcoats. You know,
Yeah.
that is a wonderful piece of writing. And I started getting lost in that, and that's where I took up reading. I started reading a lot. I have read a lot of books. I have read The Hobbit. I've read The Lord of the Rings. I have, my God, just Catcher in the Rye, the book you're not supposed to read. Communist Manifesto, Mark
Wonderful.
Aurelius. Um, I love to read. I've gotten books on poetry, reading as an escape. In my lifetime, I have probably read like 200 books. And I want you to think about that. I want you to think about how long it takes you to read a book. The Robert Jordan Wheel of Time books, the Sword of Shannara, that whole series, Conan, just all of these different escape routes. And that's what they are. They're escapes because the
Yeah.
world we live in has pain in it right now, things I don't want to deal with. So I escape to this other world. And I think because I have read so much, I love knowledge. I've read a lot of nonfiction. I have read a whole set of encyclopedias. I have read a dictionary. Somebody might be like, well, what the hell? Why would you read a dictionary? You want to talk about something that will increase
I
your
used to do that too.
vocabulary, something that will increase your knowledge, your worldly knowledge? Read a dictionary. Read every single word and its definition. You want to
You'll
talk?
find words in there that you're just like going, where did that come from? Anyway, keep going.
Yes, yes. And you want to talk about something that gives you a perception of things. Okay. Um, I have read the Bible, many versions of it. I've read the Quran. I've studied Hinduism. I've studied Buddhism. I've studied Taoism, Confucianism, the Code of Hammurabi. Um, the more that you read, the more you have the ability to deal with everyday life, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. So you want to lift yourself up from perdition, the horrible world that you live in, the horrible things that you go through. Read. Pick up a book and read. And that is going to give you a thought process. It's going to give you a new way of thinking. It's going to give you a look into somebody else's mind, somebody else's thought process. And with that, everyday life doesn't seem so bad anymore. Even though you might, again, you get that flat tire. What am I going to do? Well, do I have somebody I can borrow money from? Do I get it plugged? How can I get the money and all that? Is there anything I can do about it right now? Well, okay, no, there's not. Maybe there's somebody that, okay, maybe I got to take the bus. Maybe I got to do this. You're going to find alternatives, and it's just not going to hit you as hard. Yeah, you still are going to go through some sucky times. You're still going to go through some experiences that just really suck, but it
Mm-hmm.
makes it easier to get through it because the one thing that you do learn, none of it lasts forever. You too shall get through it. You will get beyond it. You will get past it. And you are going to be able to turn the page and read a new chapter because everybody gets to turn the page and everybody gets to read a new chapter until that book is done. And when that book of life is done, then we got other chapters and other books to explore and a whole new world. Or if you're the materialist, You're going to be like, well, that's the end. We're done. We turn to dust and there's nothing more. Well, then so be it. Bottom line is enjoy that book that you're living.
Yep. This too shall pass, right? Um, Basically, when it comes to what you're saying there, it makes me think of, healing isn't just facing ourselves. It's embracing our darker selves and then healing it. Because a lot of times when someone thinks, oh, if you're going to embrace your darker self, that means you're going to be, you know, you're going to be doing those darker things. You're going to be doing horrible things. It's like, no, no, you're forgiving yourself for having that side. You're forgiving yourself for having the shortcomings. It's being able to let go of it, being able to heal it, growing in it, thriving on the pain and the tears of our trauma. Basically being able to hug it, to be able, because a lot of times trauma is also confusion. How do you handle stress that comes with traumatic flashbacks?
Pick up a book.
Pick up a book.
Seriously, pick up a book. It's
not wrong.
Either pick up a new book and start a whole new adventure in your mind to take you away with that trauma, okay? Or pick up a book you know. For me, it's Meditations with Marcus Aurelius, okay? When I have troubles dealing with something and I need solutions, I just pick up Marcus Aurelius. And I don't read it from the beginning. What I do is, and it's back there, but what I do is I do like this, bam, and that's where I start reading.
You just randomly open it to it's like a random Calrissian moment where it's like random part of the book.
Yep, boom. And that's going to make me think about all the other parts before that and what's coming. And it puts me somewhere else. It takes me away from whatever mindset I've been put in from that traumatic flashback. And trust me, I get that a lot. I brought up the vision of my wife passing away. When she had that death rattle, I called 911 because she was non-responsive. I did not know what was going on. Literally, I knew she was gone. I knew it. And I called 911. They told me to get her on the floor. So my stepson came in and helped me get her down on the floor. And I had to do chest compressions. And I did chest compressions on my dead wife for like 20 minutes until paramedics showed up. And then they did it for another hour as I sat there and bawled. And I've been reliving that a lot. And it's very, very hard. And when it happens, I come out and I just grab a book and I start reading, because once I go into that and I start crying, and I'm like, it's so hard. Now I'll be sitting there wiping the tears, reading, and for some reason it doesn't work. And then I start reading out loud. I start reading it out loud. And with that, I'm now changing the conversation in my head. And now I'm going into the book. And then eventually I start reading to myself again, because now I'm into what I'm reading. So that's how I deal with it. And the reason why it's starting to come up is because, again, she died in January of 2022. And the hardest, she got her news in October that she only had, 3 months to a year left to live.
And Paul, you can bring it up as many times as you want. You can go into as many times as you need with me, and all the haters kiss our asses.
And here we are. We're in October, and this is like going to be the hardest 3 months for me, because October, Halloween, we used to decorate. November, Thanksgiving, it meant something, especially to her. Christmas, my birthday, 2 weeks later, January 7th, her birthday. And then January 22nd, she passed away. So it's ah, that's
Yeah,
where I'm at right now. So my mental state is very, very fragile. But again, I pick up the book. I come on here, social media. Um, that's what I do. So, how do I handle the stress that comes from traumatic flashbacks? I read, Ghostel. I read.
that's a very fair approach, very fair methodology. I mean, learning to transcend beyond the injured bird trapped in a cage of our pain, covered in a house of cards, is a way that you're doing that. Reading, it's being able, like for me, lately especially, it's been listening to podcasts. It's been listening to audiobooks more specifically, because then you're able to get transported to another world, or able to, or in my case, sometimes it's Sandman. It's wandering around with the endless, Morpheus, the Sandman, and watching as he's going through different realities of time, and helping out people around him. And it kind of feels like you're a minor god walking through time when you're in the Sandman universe. And when they're in another universe, you get to play with other characters too. Street Stoics on Spotify, eh?
Yes, I've been listening to that. That's another good thing. My friends Bryce, Stoic Bryce, and Stoic Benny, the Stoic Padawan. They have a new thing called Street Stoics on Spotify. Um, I tell you right now, if you want something to give you a perspective, check out Street Stoics on Spotify, and of course on Wednesdays and Saturdays on Twitter X. They have a Stoic space on there. Stoicism, Stoicism. I have a show on Mondays, Becoming Stoic. Stoicism is also to answer your question, Ghostel. Um, that's another thing is the studies of stoicism. It helps you gain control of your emotional state and put your mind in, allows you to control where you put your mind. So I would advise stoicism.
Yeah, it's something that me, Teapot, has been doing myself, is learning the art of managing the emotions, especially when you have in real life 1,000 things going on at once. Emotions are flaring. I'm very empathetic as an individual. One of the questions I'd asked Paul and many of his co-hosts on the Stoicism podcast was can you be empathetic and be stoic? And you were like, yes, you can be extremely empathetic and stoic at the same time. It's being able to pull back and being able to know when to reel it in, and be able to manage it and compartmentalize it. It's kind of like using Vellum to truly learn to heal and carve forwards. It's souls bright. Our souls are bright beacons in the tunnels of our inner third eye that often remains shut to the universe. And Stoicism helps with that. Believe it or not, it helps with being able to manage it, being able to take all the extreme highs and lows, and be able to kind of like drag the levels back to the center, to where everything is more of an even place, and you're not like losing your mind if the gas prices are too high, or you're not like about ready to go when you're in traffic and stuck and someone just cut you off. And it's being able to manage the flares, because everyone's got flares, everyone's got triggers, certain words, certain tone inflections, whether if someone is extremely aggressive but they're not intending to be, there's just a way to communicate that can be considered a trigger. You know, one of the ways that I previously experienced this recently is audio narration. When I was reading out parts of my book at 1, 2, 3 in the morning, I learned that there are parts of myself in that story that I didn't know existed, because it was all subconscious. It's all up here. And the act of transcribing it through voice narration has helped me see through shades of my own vellum. I've One of the things that I've enjoyed most about this podcast is realizing that we are vellum. Like we are, you know,
We are
the
the part.
act. Yes, exactly. And we are the parchment. Our very blood is the ink, and our flesh is the white. It's the paper, and that doesn't matter about skin color either. Pigmentation, like no matter what skin color you are, whether you're blue, whether you're brown, whether you're shades of black, whether you're it doesn't matter. It's still vellum. It's still your skin is often a story for somebody else, like especially if like you're a massage therapist or you're somebody that pays attention to skin, like scars and things like that, and that like matters to your job profession, or if you're just somebody that is fascinated by that type of thing, someone's scars, physical scars, will tell a story, and that's part of vellum, like the etching of the paper. Whenever you're reading a book and you're getting through like the middle, and you're like, why is that page that way? And it's like, well, there's a story behind that too, on how they got it printed, or how it was formed. And black and white third dimensional evoking of bleeding and symbiotic convergence is part of this. It's being able to link the parts of your mind, parts of your soul, and your emotions, and then get it all to converge, get it all to synchronize, and be able to become the real you, become whatever that means. Recently in real life, um, I'm considering changing my first legal name, because the fact that it just doesn't feel like me anymore. It feels like that's a person from another life, and it's fine. It's just a thing that happens, and I told Paul one day, I was like, now I'm starting to understand that identity conversation a bit more. Like it just is like you start to believe, you start to realize some things about that conversation that are far more poignant and vital, especially when you become in it. Because before I was a passenger, I was watching it happen around me. I was watching, the numbers of people that were going through those changes exponentially increase, go up. But at the same time, I was watching it, not experiencing it. It was all second or third hand. Now I'm like going, so that's what that's like. Like,
Right.
when someone says the wrong name, or when someone is doing a thing to that whole thing, you're just like, that's what that feels like.
Well,
Okay, then.
exactly. And I know there's going to be people that are just going to give you a hard time about this, and it's like your parents gave you that name. You should cherish it. Well, yeah, my parents gave me my name. I can like it. I can dislike it. Okay, I didn't get to choose it. It was something that was put upon me. Just like I didn't choose to be here. That was put upon me, not my choice. I didn't get to choose where I got to live. I didn't get to choose what kind of money that my family would have, what kind of jobs they would have. I didn't get to choose the education I would get. I didn't get to choose my skin color. I didn't get to choose my religion. I didn't get to do any of that when I came into this world. All of that was put upon me. And as I was growing up, whatever the beliefs of my parents were, is what was put upon me. From there, I got to take in the world, and then I get to decide if I want to change. And if I want to change how I look, because my parents, they wanted me to wear what I'm wearing right now, basically. There was a phase where I wore long hair. I refused to cut my hair. Why? Because my parents wanted me to have short, professional looking hair. And I said, I'm not having that. I'm going to do what I want. It's my hair. You know,
Yep.
the clothes that I wore, they wanted me to wear these clothes. No, no, no. I wanted to wear what I wanted to wear. I had a job. I could make money. I can buy what I want. I remember when I pierced my ear, my dad had a conniption fit. Oh my God, when he found out. And literally, when I was 16, and when he found out, because I hid it, I used to put putty over it. And one day while we were eating dinner, the putty fell off. And he told me, that comes out, or you get your stuff and you get out.
Oh
Literally,
wow.
I had to make a decision on whether or not I was packing my stuff and leaving, or if I was taking the earring out. I took out the earring.
Yeah.
Luckily, it had already healed and I still had the hole. So then I could wear my earring at school and everywhere else, but not at home. But that was okay. I was living under his roof. I respected his rule. Afterwards, I also got a tattoo. Again, my dad said you can't have any tattoos. Why would you do that? Why would you do that to your body? So I got a tattoo. I did my own tattoo. You know, it's not a very good tattoo, but I did my own tattoo
Yep.
because I became me. So you see, when we're born, we're not us. We are our parents. We are the influencers that are around us. And when we start exploring the world, we start finding who we are. And it never stops. It never stops. We are always exploring who we are every day. Even now, I'm exploring who I am. And if tomorrow I decide that I want to change my name because I don't like it anymore, then I'll change my goddamn name because it's my name to change.
Yep.
So, T-Paul, Peter, you want to change your name? Change it. You have my support, though you do not need it because it is yours to do with it what you want.
Appreciate you there, Paul. Yeah, no, I've the last couple weeks I've been whenever I'm at my job, day job, uh, I've been using that name instead, and luckily the coworkers have been quite supportive of that, and it's kind of an interesting difference from like uh, my dad's side of the family, for instance. Like they like some of them are like, okay, I guess he's doing that now. The other ones are just kind of like, why would he do that? And it's a thing, but like I'm just kind of doing it myself and being like, well, you either guys make the adjustment or one of these days when you guys call me by the name you guys have known me by for a long time, I don't answer. Don't be surprised. Because no reason for it to become vexation of any kind, but also I'm not going to create vexation if there is any. Not my problem. So
Yep.
like I said, I appreciate that, Paul, and I go awesome stuff because I like it when I can run into people who are appreciating it or people that are respecting it, that sort of thing. Um, there was never really the fear of somebody not accepting it because it's not like I'm asking permission. I'm just sort of being like, hey, by the way, this is happening now. But like people, they often think that though too. They often think, oh, this person's telling me this thing, they must want my permission. And it's like, no, it was kind of more of a courtesy call of like, hey, this is what's happening now. Hopefully you accept it. If not, well, that's it's going to happen anyway. But yeah, no, I go ahead.
Exactly. And you know, everyone goes through things, and a lot of people, again, they might and they might give you some pushback. Just remind them. Do you know who the Duke is? John Wayne.
Yeah.
He was born Marion Robert Morrison.
Hmm.
Marion Robert Morrison. Can you imagine the Duke Marion Morrison?
I could actually myself, but probably the people that like him a lot would not be able to imagine that. Like
Right.
my
The Duke
father-in-law, for instance.
John Wayne. You know, famous people change their names, because it won't, their name won't sell. So they take on a whole new identity and they become that identity because that's who they are. Okay. John Wayne was never Marion Morrison. John Wayne was
Yep.
John Wayne. Like him, hate him, love him, doesn't matter. That's who John Wayne was.
Indeed.
Thomas isn't Thomas anymore. Thomas is Peter.
Yep.
So there you go. That's all I wanted to throw in, is that other people have changed names and people don't give them a hard time. So if anybody ever gives you a hard time, just ask them if they know who Marion Morrison is. That's John.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna pull that now, especially since there's a lot of people in my family that absolutely love that guy. And I'll be like, "So you know who Mary Morrison is?" And they'll be like, "Wait, what?" Like, "Yeah, you remember your John Wayne you love so much?" "Yeah, that's him." "Wait, what?" "Yeah, it's his full name."
There you go. All right, T. Paul. Excellent show. Any final closing thoughts?
Pretty much. I mean, we've talked about how the heroes tell. We've talked about different versions of it. I'll just simply close by saying, if the idea and act of transcribing your thoughts with the vellum helps free you in some way, then consider yourself one of the lucky ones, because a lot of people don't even get that luxury. So embrace life every day, make hopefully good decisions, and try to have a better day.
Exactly. Exactly. Well said. Well said. All right,
That's
everybody.
Mexican food.
All right. Real quick and all that, I just want to let people know and all that, if you have mental distress or anything like that, and you need to reach out, Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, dial 988 or call 1-800-273-TALK. Get somebody there that you can talk to help you and help you get through whatever difficult times that you're going through. I know a lot of people that have used this line. I myself have called. You get people that can give you hope, and that's the one thing that we all need, is a little more hope. And when you have those dark thoughts coming in, it's best to connect with somebody and start talking. With that, remember, be happy, be kind, and may good things come your way. Thank you.
Well,
Yeah.